Ari Lewis Show.
Ari Lewis Show here on Israel Sports and News Radio. Thank you for joining us. You can email the program at arilewishow@hotmail.com, or you can email the station Israel Sports and News Radio at gmail.com. We're going to discuss soccer in this segment. On the line right now, BBC World Service News correspondent and vice writer. Back to the program, Raphael Gellar. Raphael, how you doing out there?
Good, Ari. How you doing?
Hey, doing great. So let's get started. Two big games of soccer this week here in Israel. Sunday night, if you're walking by Teddy Stadium, anyone out there want to know what the commotion about? But it was a big game. So tell us about the game first on Sunday night.
The game this past Sunday night.
Yes, past Sunday night, yes.
Okay. Beitar Jerusalem had a game against Hapoel Akko. As people say that this is Beitar's best season in many, many years, at least in the last 5, 6, 7 years since they won the title. And they won the game in the last second, a 93rd minute goal by Elad Gabai, who used to play for Maccabi Haifa last year. And they're in third place in the table after Maccabi Tel Aviv and Be'er Sheva, the two powerhouses in Israel. And they're getting the fans back to Teddy, which is always nice. And they're doing a lot of good things. They're playing very attractive. They did a great job with bringing in their foreigners. There's a limit in Israel. You're only allowed to have 5 foreigners on a club. Ugh, excuse me, hiccup. The owner has done an incredible job of bringing talent to Israeli football. Eli Tabib, since he became an owner of a football club back in the day with Hapoel Kfar Saba. But yeah, they like I said, they've done a great job of integrating their foreign talent with their Israeli talent. They have young players, really talented young players. They have really talented veterans, and then they have a good group of foreigners in the locker room who are helping them. And it's crazy because a lot of these guys could have gone to bigger teams like Maccabi Tel Aviv or Hapoel Tel Aviv or Maccabi Haifa or Be'er Sheva, but Beitar actually signed them, and they've been doing a very good job, and they're probably making half the salary of what the guys are making on Maccabi Haifa and Be'er Sheva, and even probably more than a half, maybe 3 times less than what some of the foreigners are making on Maccabi Tel Aviv, and these players are much more productive than the players on the other teams I've named. So they're in third place, which is a big deal. If they finish the season in third place, that'd be a very, very, very good accomplishment, just because Be'er Sheva and Maccabi Tel Aviv are way ahead in terms of budget and in terms of quality in the team, just because, they've spent a lot of money over the years and they've spent a lot of time on getting good players. But finishing third would be a very big thing, and also give them some way to try and qualify for Europa League next year.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Beitar's success. You mentioned one of the finest seasons they've had in a long time. They brought these players and maybe even below market value. So was there a commitment on management's end to try to improve the season? Why the change now? Why is Beitar in such a good position now?
Well, last year they had a really good year, too, for the first time, again, in a long time. They brought in, again, similar mix of veteran Israelis, young Israeli talent, and a lot of players did leave this summer to different clubs. All the foreigners are gone except one, I believe, off the top of my head. So they brought in complete new foreigners. They brought in a new coaching staff that absolutely nobody believed in. The manager they brought in came from the second division of Israeli football at a tiny club that barely gets 1,000 people at a match, to a club like Beitar that's massive and has thousands of supporters travel with the team, whether they're in Kiryat Shmona or Ashdod or Be'er Sheva. The away supporters always come. What's the difference? They realize that you have a very good brand, you have a very good fan base, and all you need to do is win. Unfortunately, they're a very good fan base, but they're not necessarily the most loyal fan base. If the team's doing very poorly, not all of them show up. You have a big core who always come to every game, no matter how bad. But if you want to if you want the crowd to go from 10,000 to 25,000, you need to have a formidable team that's competitive, that's going to try and win games. And really, for the past 8 years, except for last year that wasn't the case. They struggled some years at the bottom of the standings. They didn't have a good team. They just had a very average team, and now they have a good team, a team that's capable of competing. Even with the two best teams in the league, they can compete with them. They can beat them on bad days of those teams. Like I said, though, they don't have nearly close to the budget of Maccabi Tel Aviv or Beersheva. Those teams' budgets, or Maccabi Haifa, those teams' budgets are significantly higher, which enables them to, not just have the best, which enables, for example, Maccabi Tel Aviv have all the best Israelis in the league because they're able to give them salaries that no other team couldn't just afford to do. They can't afford to give a backup player who never plays the same type of salary as a guy who's a star on Beitar. And what you saw is one of Beitar's best players last year, who very young player, 21 years old, this future of Israeli national team, went to Maccabi this summer. He switched from Beitar to Maccabi. So it's tough to be very successful because you have teams like Maccabi always ready to take an Israeli player that's talented. They want him on their team, and they can pay him 3 times more, 4 times more, even sometimes 5 times more than what he was making, especially if he's coming from a smaller team. So, but why this year? I mean, the owner has had a lot of trouble with La Familia, the ultra group there, and he's continuously threatened to leave the club and sell it off, but he hasn't been able to find an owner who wants to buy it yet, and he wants to sell it for a good amount of money. And no one's there yet, so he realizes, he needs to, until he does sell the club, he wants to have a competitive team, and that's what he's done. He brought in guys that a lot of people didn't have any faith in. He was able to give them very cheap salaries because they were just happy to be playing at a big club like Beitar, and they've been successful.
And perhaps the idea is that if he can get a good quality team on the field, it'll be easier to sell. That could be, again, the angle. This is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports News Radio, joined by my man Raphael Gellar, BBC World Service News correspondent and vice writer. And Raphael, let's talk about the game on Tuesday, Maccabi versus Chelsea. What happened in that ball game?
Well, Maccabi lost 4-0. Wasn't anything surprising about it. They also lost 4-0 the last time the two teams met in September in London. There's not really much to say. Chelsea's a much better team. There's several players on Chelsea that make a yearly salary of what the entire Maccabi Tel Aviv team makes. There's guys who make, £300,000 a week. So that's about 1.8 million shekels a week. So, there's nothing really to compete. There's not real competition. The foreigners on Maccabi Tel Aviv aren't near the level of players on Chelsea. The Israelis are not near the level, and it's more just an honor to be in the Champions League. Maccabi Tel Aviv earned something between 13 and 16 million euro for participating in it. It was kind of a miracle that they made it. Even people in Maccabi have said that. And they wanted to try and be competitive and get good results, and they did have stretches in the match where they had some nice moves, but they weren't able to score. And it's just different. For now, it can change, if they continuously make the Champions League, which this is the first time they've made it in over 10 years. But if they can make it every year for a few years, you'll see the level rise in competition, and you'll see Maccabi players be more successful and be able to compete better with some of these big teams. But as of now, it's not possible, and it's just kind of an honor to be there and to have these world-class, 200 million pounds teams come to Israel, and just it's exciting for Israeli fans to get to see some of the best players in the world. But right now, it's not a time that Maccabi can League and have been successful. Israel, Maccabi Tel Aviv in 2004, they tied, I believe. I think it was Juventus. They beat Ajax, so these are big teams. So it's definitely possible. It's just not right now. The team's not ready. The foreigners aren't at the level you need. The Israelis are not good enough. There's only a few really, really good players, and it's disappointing, but it is what it is, and Now there's only one game left in the Champions League in 2 weeks, and then after that, Maccabi can fully focus on winning its fourth straight championship. That's the goal.
All right, and just to kind of touch a little bit more about this, you mentioned the amount of money they're going to get for participating in this 15 to 16 million euro. Do you expect that management will take that money and put it back in the team, or will they pocket most of it? What will happen with the funds?
Well, the team, it's a good question. Well, the team's budget is, no one really knows, but there's lots of estimates, somewhere from maybe 15 to 25 million euro a year is the budget, with traveling, with wages, with all sorts of things, which is extremely high for Israel standards. I mean, we're talking 100 million shekel a year. There's some teams in the Israeli Premier League that are, for example, an Akko, Bnei Yehuda, a little team in the neighborhood of Tel Aviv. They're running on a 8 to 10 million shekel budget for the entire everything. So, 100 million shekel for soccer in Israel is something that's never even seen before. But, the owner, I don't know what he's doing. I mean, the owner is Mitch Skolzhar. His net worth is $1.4 billion. So I'm not sure exactly what he does with the money. I'm sure he uses some of it to pay for things. Maybe he uses all of it to make up for his losses. Remember, he also gets ticket sales and all sorts of other, endorsements and things like that. And I think they're going to take. I don't know if they're going to take money from there because again they don't need it, but they will definitely take some money and invest in keeping some of the players on the team and making sure they don't go to Europe. Trying to get better foreigners for next year because the foreigners this year just weren't good enough. They made a mistake with them. They haven't really clearly said it, but it's pretty obvious that the foreigners they signed were not at the level they wanted them to be. Because when you're playing in the Champions League, you'd expect all of your foreigners to be playing in the game, and there's plenty who didn't even make the lineup, which shows the foreigners are brought in to be the stars of the team and to help raise the level for the Israeli players, and that wasn't the case this year. And that's what you need if you want to compete in the Champions League. You have to have foreigners who are very, very good players, and this wasn't the case. There's no foreigner who makes any significant contribution except maybe the goalie, and then maybe Nosei Igabor. But besides that, the players can be replaced with Israelis, and that's not what you want from a foreigner on a team like Maccabi Tel Aviv. So I think, they'll take the money, they'll invest in some players. They have bought a lot of players the last few years, and they haven't actually sold that many players. It looks like Ran Zahavi, the star of the team, is going to be sold somewhere. Unclear where. Lots of reports and rumors that lots of teams in Europe want him, but they won't sell him for less than 4 million euros. So if they can take that money too whenever they get it and invest it in a lot of players. I mean, you can get really, really good players to come to Israel if you're with 4 million euro. There's lots of great players that help Maccabi. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's no such thing as free agency in world football. There's something called a transfer fee where you pay a team to get that player, and that's only available in the summer and in the winter. And when during those two times, you're not allowed to sign new players unless they're players who don't have any contracts anywhere else and they're just looking for contracts. So basically the transfer window will open in January. Maybe it's even late December in Israel, I don't remember. But then you should expect Maccabi to try and bring in some new players and strengthen the team because they have to win the championship. If they don't win the championship, then they can't qualify for the Champions League. The only team in Israel that gets to try and qualify is the champion. Second place only qualifies for Europa League. So coming in first is very important for them, and is the goal. And them not coming in first is a failure. So they have to do everything they can to win their fourth straight championship.
All right, again, this is the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports and News Radio. We're talking Israeli soccer. My guest is Raphael Gellar, BBC World Service News Correspondent and Vice Writer. So, Raphael, let's talk about the game next week. Talk about Beitar Wednesday. They are going to be hosting Be'er Sheva. And believe it or not, I'm actually going to that game. A man named Nehemiah Gordon is invited me to the game. I'm going to go. I'm excited. What should I expect
Nice.
from the game on Wednesday?
You should expect a very good environment. Beersheba this year has a great. The game's in Jerusalem.
Yeah, Jerusalem.
Yeah, you should expect a very large amount of Beersheba fans to accompany the team. I'm guessing in the thousands, at least 2,000-3,000. Beersheba right now is playing really, really nice style football, a lot of goals, very offensive-minded team. It'll be a great atmosphere. I mean, there'll be a lot of people. It's always fun to go to a Beitar game. Fans are fun. And it's going to be good. It's two really good teams. It's the top tier, very good environment. You know, but like I said, Beersheba fans travel, so that's always fun to see thousands of people that are coming from another city to support their team. I'm sure Beitar will do whatever they can to get 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 people at the game. And it'll be good. If Beitar can win a game like that, it really shows that they're ready to be on the map. They're ready to really try, and who knows? I mean, to maybe try and compete for the championship. But they don't have enough yet. They don't have a deep enough bench. They don't have X and Y. But you know, if they can compete for the championship and fall a little short, no one will be angry. Their fans will be more than happy if they finish third, and somehow if they finish second, that'd be a huge accomplishment. Just like as I said, Maccabi Tel Aviv and Beersheba are just miles away ahead of these teams in money, in type of players that they're bringing in or bringing back from Europe, Israeli players that they're willing to pay, you know, $400,000 a year. That's a lot of money just for one player in Israel. That's a lot of money. And teams like Beitar are not willing to pay $400,000 for an Israeli player under any circumstances. In fact, their foreigners don't even make that kind of money. So these teams like Maccabi and Beersheba are able to pay all these Israelis $250,000 and $400,000 and $350,000. It's why they have, you know, the best teams in the league. So Beitar coming in third or second would be massive and would be a good thing for the city, for the fans, for the team. It's always, I mean, everyone says it's always good to have a competitive and good Beitar team. It's good for the league because you have a lot of fans who come. It's good for the league because Teddy's a beautiful stadium, and it's a very bad atmosphere if there's only 3,000 or 4,000 people at a game. It's not the type of stadium where the acoustics are good. It's a very poor environment. So when you get to 10, 15, 20,000 people at Teddy, it's one of the most enjoyable sporting events in Israel by far. So it should be good. I think it'll be a good match, and I think it'll be interesting to see if Beitar can get the win. Because if they can, they're really gonna start to scare some other teams. And you know, sometimes when you come out of nowhere and no one's counting on you, that gives you the most motivation. And you never know. I mean, crazy things happen in sports. If they gain confidence and they don't have any injuries, they can win a miraculous championship. It's very unlikely, just because the other two teams have so much depth and they have backups who can come in fresh and just lots and lots of players. But you never know if the guys stay healthy and take care of their bodies and are able to endure a very long soccer season. That's a reminder, you know, basically their season started June 15th, and we're already almost in December. So they've been going on for months, and the season's now 1/3 done. So they still have 2/3 to go, and they've already been playing since June. So, and that season ended in May. So a lot of these players only had a 2-week break. There's no sport in the world where there's players who literally have a 2-week break and that's it. Then you're back in the mode and you're back in playing. And Beitar actually had their first game of the 2015-2016 season on July 2nd, where some teams in the Israel Premier League didn't have their first game until September or August 22nd. So that's a huge disadvantage. Granted, the reason Beitar had the game in July 2nd is because they're playing in Europa League qualifiers, but I think secretly Beitar would rather have started the season then, but then you argue that it gave them more time to click and connect, and that's what they're doing. I think they've won 5 out of 6, which in Israel is, big. If a manager here loses 3 or 4 games, he's fired. If he wins 4 or 5 games, he's a king. It's not like American sports. Things change very quickly. Just before we end, 5 basketball coaches have been fired, and we're only in week 12 of the season. There's only been 12 games, and 5 coaches have already been fired. So that shows the kind of competitive and what teams expect management expects from the teams. If you lose 3 in a row or win 3 in a row, it changes you as a manager. And I think it's the first time in many years where we have had big teams like Maccabi Tel Aviv fired their coach, Hapoel Tel Aviv fired their coach, Hapoel Cologne fired their coach, Eilat fired their coach. Those are the 4 biggest teams in the league who all fired their coach, and that's the way kind of it is in Europe. You don't do well for a little bit, okay, but if you don't do well for 4 or 5 games, that's it. You're done. You're fired. It doesn't matter if you didn't have the right players or the budget or et cetera. You need to win. And that's scary because in America you get a long time, and it's very different. So it's the same thing in the soccer. So we'll see what happens. It's definitely exciting, and I'm sure you'll have a good time.
All right, good stuff. Again, another episode of the Ari Lewis Show on Israel Sports and News Radio. My guest has been Raphael Gellar, BBC World Service News Correspondent and Vice Writer. Check Raphael's work there. And Raphael, please give the audience your Twitter handle again. It's
Raphael, Raphael _Gellar, Gellar.
Okay, great. And thanks for being on the program, and thank you everyone for listening. Raphael, I'm coming, as I told you before, I'm coming more and more around of the game of soccer, respecting the athletes and all the work they put into it, getting more into it. And, of course, a big thanks to you for helping me with that realization.
Of course. I'm glad that all of this talk over the years has finally turned you to the right side.
I'm not saying it's my favorite sport. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying I have a respect for that. There's no question. I mean, as you talked about, very few breaks, and these are world-class athletes, very conditioned, running over and over and over, so very impressive. Raphael, thank you for being on the program. It's a lot of fun. Great job as always.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Be well, and, of course, shalom from Israel.